Welcome back. Okay, so maybe let's start out with a little background. My husband and I first met when I was right out of college in a new city. He swept me off my feet, and from our first date, it was magic. We married 3 years after that, and now we have an 8-year-old daughter. We both work pretty great jobs, and between caring for our daughter and work responsibility, we're both busy people. But he always made time for me and treated me like royalty, even when I didn't do the same. Around the beginning of 2019, I became familiar with one of my coworkers, Nick. He's about my age and has a wife and 3 kids of his own. Nick and I started so innocent, we would go out to work outings together and sit close by and talk. I started sitting in his lap, and we had some light touching, but nothing too severe. I guess he reminded me of when my husband and I were young. There was a passion in Nick's eyes that drew me close to him. Eventually, we started sleeping together. I knew during the whole time it was wrong, but I pushed through, never once thinking about the impact it could have on my husband. This morning started off as usual. My husband gets into the shower before me every day, and I snooze before I have to hop in too. He mentioned last night that he was going to stop by Costco on the way home from work today, so I grabbed my husband's phone so I could add to the shopping list a few things that I wanted. I know my husband's iPhone lock code, so I went into the Notes app to add what I wanted. And when I opened the app, it opened to a folder with dates listed on it. The date started the first week of March and continued unabated until last week. I curiously opened one of the dates, and to my shock, it was a diary. I never knew my husband as the type of person to write out his thoughts and emotions. I read through the first couple entries of his diary, and it broke my heart. The diary was all about my infidelity and how my husband was processing it. Looking at the dates that were listed, he discovered my affair about a month after it became physical. I quickly locked his phone and hid it. When he came out of the shower, I helped him look for the phone I hid. My husband has a work phone and a personal phone, so he was unfazed about not being able to find it. He was on a time crunch and left the house with only his work phone. I called off work and read each diary entry. I feel like I may vomit. Almost each entry for the first 3 months he discovered my affair were about how he planned on making her fall in love with me again. He had detailed in this diary the plans he had to make me forget about Nick. He talked about taking us on a week-long vacation so I couldn't see him, how he bought my favorite flowers and cooked my favorite dish, but I continued to see Nick. As the time went on and I continued to tell lies to my husband, he would write in the diary about how his resolve is beginning to waver, how he's becoming depressed and feels so lonely and unloved. After 3 months, the diary entries become wholly about his depression and how he cries every time he knows I'm with Nick. He writes how every night before falling asleep, he has visuals of Nick's body on top of mine, and how the visuals make him feel physically ill. He keeps writing in his diary how he doesn't want our daughter to grow up with divorced parents like he did. There's a diary entry from 1 month ago that stopped me in my tracks, though. In the entry, my husband talks about how one night when I was with Nick and he put our daughter to bed, he was crying to himself like usual. But the tears stopped flowing. He said that his body finally stopped producing tears for his failed marriage. He said this night was the night the Band-Aid fully came off. In this entry, he talks about how this 6-month-long process felt like a Band-Aid on his soul was slowly being pulled off, and how now the Band-Aid was finally off, he felt a wave of relief, like he finally got over me. 2 weeks ago, he had another diary entry. In this one, he talks about how he wants to arrange to meet an escort girl. He writes that he doesn't know how to start an affair, but having sex with someone other than his wife will be an interesting experience. My husband knows my cheating schedule. He's planned on meeting this escort sometime that I'm with Nick. I don't know what to do at this point. I'm at such a loss. I'm so ashamed of myself. The whole I kept telling myself that no one was getting hurt, that this affair would run its course and life would go back to normal. I never realized the pain and suffering that I put my husband through. I've cheated on him so many times, and he's suffered through it. What can I do now? I'm never going to cheat on my husband again, but it's probably too late to have this realization for me. Where do I go? What can I do? I know many of you will say some horrible things about me, and that's okay, but please help me save the marriage I ruined. What you want at this stage does not matter. What matters is what he wants and what's best for your child. Frankly, I think you're a bad mom. You've single-handedly ruined your child's life because you wanted another man. Your child will now grow up in a broken home because of you. There's really nothing you can do to rectify the situation, sadly. Comments. Your post broke my heart for your husband. How can you possibly think that this would not have consequences? The first step is to tell your husband what you did, even if he already knows. He might still be willing to attempt to save your marriage, or he might really have worked through the pain and is now working towards an exit strategy. In either case, you need to tell him. You also need to have a long, deep conversation with yourself. Why did you cheat in the first place? Are you still committed to this marriage in a way that you should be? If you are, then why did you feel the need to cheat? Be prepared for the most likely outcome of this situation, a divorce. But if you're both still willing, try your best to save it with couples therapy and tons of honesty. You've killed your marriage. You're both basically going through the motions at this point. There will be no recovering from this. You can admit to things now, but I doubt it will do any good. Congrats on being a giant piece of shit. In your post, you said he wrote that he finally got over you. Sorry to say, but I think you've successfully killed your marriage. So that ship has already sailed. The real question is, what's next and how to go on from here? Do I think you're going to stop with Nick? Probably not. Just be honest with yourself and please let your husband live a good life, which probably doesn't involve you. My apologies for the harsh tone. Story 2. My boyfriend, whom I love very much, was away on a work-related training trip. He was supposed to be home Wednesday evening, so I spent all afternoon getting a new sexy look inspired by the Boom Challenge on TikTok. I found a blazer, crotchless panties, and a cute top hat. I combined those items with a bracelet bra with a butterfly centerpiece, garter belt, stockings, and screw-me heels. The look was so sexy, and I was ready for a raunchy evening with my boyfriend. He calls me and tells me he's delayed and will not be back till the next day. I heard another woman's voice say, "Let's go dance." I was furious and felt bad knowing he was cheating on me while out in Houston, Texas. I called my BFF and she showed up with her boyfriend and a friend of his, and we had one hell of a foursome. Something I wanted to do with my boyfriend. My boyfriend came to my place as soon as he made it back in town. I answered the door in just a t-shirt. He tried to kiss me, but I turned my head. He asked if I was pissed because he was a day late. I told him I heard the other woman's voice while he was on the phone with me. He swore nothing happened, that the voice was a coworker's wife. I said, sure, likely tale. I told him I was all worked up and needed him, but no, he stayed and played in Houston. Before he left, he told me he was sorry that he did not cheat and realizes now how it sounded. He left a number for me to call and talk to the guy's wife. Even after opening his phone showing me the only number other than work he called was mine. I talked to the wife, and she assured me it was her that I heard on the phone, even filled me in on their evening, and how my boyfriend turned down other women. All this happened just because the airline delayed their flight. I don't know what to do. Please help. I know I need to confess to my boyfriend what I did and hope he forgives me, but I know how he feels about cheaters. I only cheated because I thought he was doing what he promised me he would never do to me. I love him and can't stand the idea of life without him. I'm afraid when I tell him he'll leave me forever. An added problem is he is divorced from his ex-wife due to cheating. I just don't know how to confess what I did and not lose him. Again, please help with any advice. Please don't be harsh. I feel bad enough as it is. Update. Me 20 female, BFF 20, sister 23. I told my boyfriend 25 everything. And of course, as some predicted, he dumped me. He did say, however, he could understand how I thought he did what he did not do, but added that my reaction was just too much even had he cheated. On the positive side, he wished me well. So tonight, I went out with my boyfriend and BFF. When my sister heard the story, her immediate response was, "What kind of idiot are you?" My sister has known about me and my BFF since we were in high school, but was also interested in what we did with the guys. She's 3 years older than I am. Her advice was simple: don't act like a bitch. She read what I wrote and was glad to see I didn't use my real name, but also asked why the hell would you post stuff like this on the web? I did not answer that question. I guess I just needed to get it off my chest. And maybe I just did not want others to do what I did. Right now, that's the only answer I have for her question. My actions, however inappropriate, I will just have to live with. It really blows my mind that you did what you did just because you thought he was cheating. You have a lot of maturing to do before you jump into another relationship. Comments. I guess now you know to not immediately have sex with 3 other people just based on an unconfirmed suspicion about your partner. I'm going to assume your extreme actions are a result of your very young age. But if you continue to engage in this kind of response and behavior, therapy may be a good idea. You need serious help. You never loved him nor respected him. You loved what he provided and are so insecure that the second you need validation, you go and throw away your relationship for a frick. Seriously, you are so shallow and still have yet to process everything. But judging from how you're talking and acting, there's many years until you process everything and really start atoning for your actions.